Real estate investing is one of my big passions, but I always find that in our community it's kind of like intimidating. And, we don't see ourselves as real estate investors. So today I have with me Lindsay Barrientos to share her journey and hopefully inspire others and make real estate investing feel more achievable by seeing, hey, we're out here doing it. So, hola, Lindsay. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, Violeta. How are you? Thank you for inviting me on your podcast. I'm glad that you have a platform for me to come on and share my journey.
Yeah, I'm excited because I think one of the things that I struggle with trying to get our community to, get into real estate investing is that if it sounds hard, it feels like it's not achievable, and that's why I'm glad that I'm finding more people as I go through my own journey. I'm finding more of our community out here, so I that's my mission, is to bring them on here so to share their journey and make it seem like, hey, like we're out here doing it like regular people. It's, you don't have to be like a super millionaire or whatever to be out here buying properties. So I'm excited to get into your journey.
Yeah, so I'm actually Peruvian. I was born and raised in Peru, and I immigrated to the United States in 2008 with my parents. It's actually a crazy story. My dad won the lottery of visas, so he won a green card, and because we were
Oh.
underage, there was no separation of families. So by default, we also were awarded a green card. So I came here at the age of 16 with family, didn't know any English, was thrown into high school and had to learn it the hard way. And, uh, you know, ended up going to college. I became a nurse and I continued to support my family in many ways because we only have a few years here in this country, and there's a
Hmm.
lot of challenges that come with that, like immigration and getting adjusted to the United States culture, history, and financial things. Like, I had to learn about credit scores and all of that. So that is where I come from.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine that. At 16, like I came at 3, so like I had it like kind of really easy, right? Because I was little, so I can imagine like as a teenager coming in here and having to learn a new language and seeing that like the differences from here and over there. You had to learn everything about finances kind of like on a whim. So what was your journey like?
Yeah, so my parents, well, at least my mother, since the beginning, we grew
Hmm.
up very humble, very poor. We were always housed, but my parents were unemployed many times during when me growing up.
Hmm.
So money was always like a topic that was around in the household, right? Like we knew exactly what everything costed, since I have a memory of everything, like what milk costed, what eggs costed, what eggs costed.
Hmm.
So I definitely knew how to budget since I was like very, very little. And when we came here, we came here with like one bag, one roll carry on, 16-pound bag. So
Hmm.
we didn't really have anything. And then if we wanted to buy things like chairs and beds and things, we had to like work for it. So since I was very little, I seen my parents work really hard to earn money, and their mentality, or like the mentality that I had, was like, you work harder to make more money. You work more hours, you stay over the time, you take another job, basically, to just sustain your family. And there was no education passed of like, oh, this is how you become financially stable, or it was just saving, like saving, saving, saving. It wasn't like how do you leverage debt or how do you become financially independent. There was none of that.
How did you start learning about like managing money? And you knew a little bit, so that was good because you at least knew about budgeting, because I didn't like really budget anything. I just like paid everything, and then it's like everything else was like, okay, I'm gonna spend it when I was younger. So at least you were ahead of me.
Yeah, so very young I had to learn that, since I had no ways to sustain myself through college, I had to work through college.
Mhm.
So very young, I knew like what earning minimum wage was. And so I always had the mentality of like, if I'm gonna have to work this hard, then I must save for a rainy day because my parents
Mhm.
were also working minimum wage.
Mhm.
So when I started working, I started saving a lot of the money that I was making. And then I always have the mentality, I was like, oh, okay, well, we're going to go to college, we're going to get a career. And once we get a career, then I'm not going to struggle as much. And it was during one of the jobs that I was having as a nurse assistant that I learned that they were offering a 401k. And so I didn't know what a 401k was. And I, by default, my paycheck was collected like 4% away into my 401k. By the time I graduated college at the age of like 22, and I
Mhm.
had my nursing degree, I realized that I have a few $1,000s in this account that I didn't know. And so I went to community college because I could not afford a four state university. So I got my rent. And then so I realized, oh, how did this money came out to be? I did not understand it at that time. And I used the money. I guess that's one of the mistakes that I did early on at age 22 to like pay for my bachelor's degree
Yeah.
because I did not want to take loans because I was under the mentality that I cannot take out loans or didn't know much about that. So I funded my bachelor's with that 401k money, took the penalty, but it didn't really hit me that much because I wasn't
Mhm.
really making that much money as a minimum wage person. So I I was just like, okay, well, this money did give me my bachelor's degree. And then I was like, I can do it that again. I can build up the money again if I get a job that has another 401k. So working as a nurse, I like started to see the possibility of like putting money aside that it was giving me a tax break, a tax deduction at the end of the year. I was like, okay, well,
Mhm.
I'll just keep doing that. And then so it was not so much I have extra income, but I was already using the 401k as a tool, which at the
Mhm.
time I didn't know. I didn't know this was like for retirement. You shouldn't be touching anything like that. So I did a lot of years like that. I did know that from the beginning I wanted to be a homeowner because my parents stressed homeownership very hard and us. And
Mhm.
I also grew up quite very independent and very anti men, I guess, in which like I wanted to be the homeowner. I wanted to be the one that drives my future and takes all of the financial questions and making decisions. So I took it upon myself to use the money again for a 401k that I have been putting away years after years, because in my mind I was just like, well, the whole goal was to go to university, get your degree, and start working. And I was like, I did that, so what do I want now? So that was like the goal for my parents, for me, but not like, what do I want? So I want to be a homeowner. Okay, I'm gonna use this money again for this 401k that I didn't know was supposed to be for my retirement to buy a house. So I that's what I did. And that would be one of the things that I guess the fire community didn't prepare me, because at the time I didn't know about the fire community. But I used that as a down payment for my home and I became a homeowner. Then I I realized I was about to turn 30. I realized like, oh, I need to know more about financial security. Like I'm getting older. Like what do I do with like when I need to be retired? Like is social security gonna be even around? I didn't know that. And I didn't know how much money I'm gonna get. And now I'm a homeowner, so I have bigger bills. So like I need to figure it out. And I was 29, and then I started reading books about financial stability, about how to learn how to increase your money, make money smarter, investing. And I mentioned that earlier. I started following accounts on Instagram that people that were like trying to do the same, I guess. And that's how I found like Well Para Todos, the Latino people that were trying to figure it out because nobody was telling us, oh, like put your money in a 401k or a Roth IRA or save for retirement because you're going to need it. Nobody was telling that in my regular environment day to day. So I was like, okay, let me go on social media and then find out who's doing it or who knows more answers than I do. So I found Well Para Todos, and then she was going through her journey of like from debt to investing. And I reached out to her, and she sent me a book on a PDF called A Simple Path to Wealth. And I read the book in like 2 days. And I was like, oh my God, I have to invest. I just emptied my 401k twice. Like, but you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to save for the future. So I went into the deep dark hole of the internet, and I just like looked up every single thing that I could do in order for me to retire with some cash coming in, like some passive income coming in. So I started just following more accounts. I read way more books. I will teach you how to be rich, poor dad, rich dad, all of these books. And meanwhile, the money that I kept making, I was putting aside in retirement accounts like a Roth
Yeah.
IRA, a 401k. I learned those little steps. I was like, okay, I'm good. And then a pandemic hit.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like we can't catch a break. Like we do things and then something happens. Like we go and get like the job, or we get our school or education, and it's like something always happens, and you're like, for example, like our generation, like they got stuck with like student loans, and so that set them behind. And then like you just said, like now the pandemic.
Yeah, no, back then my head, and I did not mention, or maybe I did mention, but I'm a nurse, so I was hit very hard with the pandemic. I became
Mhm.
very depressed because I saw a lot of people die day after day, and I became from loving nursing to hating nursing, because it was just making my life. I could not bear it, right? Seeing that many people die, people like look like us, like my parents, like brothers and sisters. So I said to myself, what do I do? Like I can't, I don't know anything else. Like I only know nursing. I don't know how to make money otherwise. So I was just like, I need to find another plan. Like retirement is so far out. Yes, I will continue to invest in my 401k, my Roth IRA, and my brokerage account. But it would take like 20 years for me or 30 years for me to get to that point. And then meanwhile, my mental health is deteriorating. So I decided we have plan A and plan B, which is plan A is go back to school, major in something else, and start your career again because that's all I knew. Like I was a good student, so I knew like how to study. So that was plan A. Plan B was like I'm gonna find something else that I can invest that can bring me more cash flow. So maybe I don't need to work as much. I don't need to work 12-hour shifts 5 days a week. Maybe I need to work 3 or 2 or 1.
Yeah.
So I started looking up more books and I found real estate investing. And I realized that me purchasing my home during the pandemic, the interest rates went down, house appreciated so much. And I was like, there's money here, like that it's not, there's something that I haven't tapped into it. So I started looking for people again on social media that were investing. And I didn't find, honestly, anybody that looked like us, like in 2020, 2021. And so I just started talking to people on YouTube or Instagram, and I found a couple of investors that are investing out of state. I live in Los Angeles, California, and the home prices here are astronomical. There's no way I can save a 20% down payment, 20 to 25% down payment for a rental here. So I needed to do something else.
Hmm.
And that's how I ended up looking for out of state markets.
Yeah, that's what kind of stops a lot of people, because right now I'm in San Diego, so California as well, and it's so expensive. So, and there's other markets where the house values are so high that it's like there's no way I could get 20, 25%, whatever it is that I need for an investment property. And people don't think to go out of state. And also, if they do, it's scary. So like, how did, like, when you heard like, okay, my only way to buy a property is to find one out of state, like, what was your thoughts, like, because I know I was scared at first. I was like, "Ew, it sounds it sounds very scary."
Yeah. Initially, I was very, very scared. And I, it's took a comparison to like what the market does, right? When you
Mm-hmm.
invest in the market, your day to day or like even your year to year, you might be up 20% one day and then minus 20% the other day. You don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's scary, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
something that when you buy a stock, it's not something like you can touch and feel. It's something that you just bought and then somebody told you, like, yeah, you own this share. And I equate it to like buying real estate. At least I'm buying something that I can touch and feel. That's something that's there, that's been there for years. And because I don't think I can afford new construction, but that's been there for years. And if everything fails, I can always sell. So, but there was a huge curve of education for me since I only knew how to invest into the S&P 500, VTSAX. Like I only knew what stock investing was, so I just poured myself more books, and I started
Yeah.
reading more about out of state investing. I like looked up podcasts like the Real Estate Rookie, Bigger Pockets, other things like that. So I learned what I needed to be focusing on, like what strategy I needed to be focusing on according to my risk tolerance. I like found out how much cash on cash return I should be focusing on too, because if I'm investing in and the stock market and I'm looking for at least a 7% return, that's what I'm getting from the last 100 years that we know that it will average to, then I need to make more than that 7% because now that investing strategy was totally passive, like you said, and forget it, right? But with real estate, now you're going to have to do work. You're going to have to learn how to analyze a deal, learn what your market average is bringing up, and then learn what a good cash on cash return is. And then so you
Mm-hmm.
had all of these factors. So education is key, but there's also something called as analysis paralysis, in which you get so focused on what the numbers are going to be or like the spreadsheets or all the properties you analyze, and then you get like, oh, the what ifs. What if the roof case in? What if the sewage clogs up? What if the all the bathrooms break down? Like,
I think the main one is always like they're always scared that the tenant's not gonna pay us. Like that's like the lesser one because you're more than likely are gonna have to repair something like the HVAC. It's always plumbing for me, and I know it stops a lot of people because they're looking for the perfect. I think that's the other mentality too, is that we want the perfect thing to invest our money. And with real estate investing is not going to be perfect. The main thing is that you're doing like how you said that you're beating the stock market.
yeah, many books say many different things, but I do want to point out that you need to find out what you're comfortable with because there's so many strategies with real estate. You
Mhm.
can do short-term rentals, you can do mid-term rentals, you can buy a whole, you can flip, you can burn, you can so many things, right? There's rent by the room now, co-living, and all those things. For me, because it's very individualized, for me, it's like I needed to invest in something that was more passive and that was going to be kind of off my hands. So I knew from the beginning that like managing the rental was not something that I could do in my regular life and then also do my W 2. So from the get go, I was like, I need a property manager. I need somebody to place the tenants. I need somebody to manage the tenants. I need somebody to renew the leases, collect the rent, and everything. So
Yeah.
like I already narrowed down what I could do, because if you're paying a property manager, then you need to include that in your numbers. So the next step would be to pick a market. So for me, like I knew out of state, right? Because I could not afford here. And then so I wanted to be close to the out of state market, in case that if I needed to, let's say, worst case scenario, fly in, fly out, then I could.
Hmm.
At that time, when I started looking at markets, I was looking at Florida, you know, Ohio. Everybody kept talking about Columbus, Ohio, or Cleveland, Ohio. Bigger pockets kept, yeah. So, but I was just like, okay, let me find out something that I can go and fly too quickly. At the time I was about to take a contract as a nursing contract in Chicago, Illinois. And I said, okay, it's 2022 at this time. Like, let me go and house hack a house in Chicago. Since I'm going to be a nurse there, I'm going to stay for a few months. I'm sure I can find another traveler nurse there and rent the other room too. But 2022, nobody was paying rent in Chicago because of the pandemic. So I realized that another thing about my restaurants, I need to be on a state that's going to be more landlord friendly than
Hmm.
Illinois. So, but something that was close to Illinois was Indiana. And that's the market that eventually ended up in. I again went to social media, found creators, YouTube especially, that were investing already in the market that I was looking at in Indiana. And I reached out to them. I don't really have much shame about sending a message on YouTube and be like, hi, my name is so so. This is my email. Let me know if you can connect or anything. And then luckily to me, I found creators that were not as big that had the time to
Hmm.
like reply and talk to me.
Yeah.
So I found at least two other people that were investing in the same area that I was looking at. And at the time, I was Hemet, Indiana, and Gary, Indiana. That is like 30 to 40 minutes away from downtown Chicago.
Hmm.
So I was going to be there. I could drive back and forth to see the area, to like analyze the area. And so I found two men. Both of them were cops. One of them was in Florida. The other one was in Washington. They had a YouTube channel, Millennial Mike and Muskie Finance. So like again, I like reach out to them, ask them, hey, I see your numbers, I see the content you're putting out there. I really like that you're being honest about your success and your failures. How do you see this market becoming? Like where like would you mind talking to me via other email or phone or anything like that? And then they were very nice, very helpful. They were just like, yeah, this is what I'm doing, this is what deal I am on, this is my realtor, this is my property manager. So from the beginning I just felt like, oh wow, I just sent a message to these people, and then they're giving me all of this data and all of these referrals that have been severely already used in the past. And I'm like, okay, I have like a shoe in this market then now. So that a little bit eased my, I guess, my doubts of going out of state. And then the purchase price made it more cemented, I guess. The idea of like the first house I invested on was 135K in Hammond, Indiana, which at 20% down would be something along the lines from 20 to $25,000. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I was scared, yes,
Hmm.
but if anything goes badly, I can always sell the property. Right. At the time, it was 2022, interest rates were going up. People were afraid of like buying. Like, I remember this thing:
Hmm.
when everybody else gets scared, you get greedy. When everybody
Hmm.
else is greedy, you get scared. So I'm like, okay, everybody's getting scared. We don't know what the market is going for real estate. Let me test my toes with this. And if it fails, I sell. If it doesn't pan out, then I know this is not the investment strategy for me. And then I'll go back to the S&P 500. I'll go back to 401k investing. I'll go back to my passive life. So I did. I jumped in 2022. I found my lender. I already had referrals for realtors and property managers, so I just interviewed them and I found who I ended up with, and that was my first deal.
I'm glad that you brought up, because a lot of people don't know where to start, but you like found people on YouTube, and that's another great resource, that you can really just go on there and type the market that you might be interested in. There's people that are making YouTube videos. There's also like, most of the time there's even like Facebook groups of investors that are in that area as well that you could join. And a lot of times, most of them are going to be willing to help. Like, you'll get like one or two snooty people that are like, too booked or whatever. But most of the, like, the small, the regular ones are more helpful and willing to help and share their resources. And that's one key thing, is to network and get out there and just send out a message, just ask, because you never know who might say yes. And then look at you, now you had bought your first property at that time.
Yeah, and I think it's very important to point out what you said, network. And that's something that I've been learning in the last 2 years, that it's so rewarding to network. Like the people that you connect with that are doing basically the same thing that you're doing, investing in real estate or investing in the S&P 100, however you're investing.
Yeah.
The people, the community that you get by talking to everybody that's doing the same thing is just like what's gonna propel you into your journey for sure.
So that was your first one. What happened after that, or what's next for you?
Yeah, so that was in 2022. In 2023, I wanted to have proof of concept. So I left that property, I bought it, I get a property manager, I had it rented out for 1 year. I did not look
Mm-hmm.
at any other real estate. I also was in graduate school, so I was quite busy, but I had a rental income coming every month. For 1 year, I it was just smooth. So I was like, I can do this again. I can buy another one. So the next one, it was in the same state, just a little bit further in a city in which the purchase price was even lower. So I bought my second property. It was a 2 bedroom, one bath. It was listed for 65,000 and I got it for 55,000. And this is because the interest rates were so high at that point. Nobody was buying in 2023. I think my interest rate is like 7.5 on the house when I bought it. But that $55,000 house, I could rent it out for 1100. So that was where like I felt very confident in going into this market. So yeah, from the get-go, I was just like, oh wow, this is just moving a little bit off the city that I was investing initially, brought me great return. So I ended up renting out the house, and after two houses, I was just like, I'm out of cash. I don't know what else to do. And then so I'm like, okay, let's go to Miracle Buckets. Let me see what else I can do without cash. So I learned the concept of leveraging debt. So in my primary in Los Angeles, my house had appreciated because I bought in 2019.
Yeah.
And I realized that there was a lot of equity in my house
Mm-hmm.
that I could tap into. And so I opened up a HELOC last year. And I learned what I could do with the HELOC, which is BRRRR, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. And by opening this new concept, I'm like, I don't know if I can do that because I don't know if now it's different, right? Like now rehabbing a property, now you have to talk to contractors, now you have to estimate budget, now you have to do all of these things. And again, we're like, okay, well, if it fails, you can always sell the house. So I already had two houses income producing, and now I'm going into it. a different strategy. Still real estate, but a different strategy. But in my mind, I was just like, well, do it scare. Like, let's see if it works out. Right now, you have those income producing properties. So at the time, you're not using technically your own money because I was using the HELOC money to do the property to rehab it. So it was way different than the first two. It's hard and it takes a long time. It takes a long time because I haven't been lucky enough to find a bank that would cash out refinance sooner than 6 months.
Yeah.
So you have the when you buy something cash, which is I did from my HELOC, I bought something cash because I needed repairs. They're not that house particularly was not going to be approved for like conventional financial or FHA because they have their
Mhm.
standards. The house has to be livable. So I did not buy a livable house. I bought a rehab that was more extensive than that. And so I had to buy it cash. I bought it cash. This is a crazy story. I bought it cash, 35K. And I knew I was gonna put at least 33,000 into the rehab because at the time I had a house walked by contractors. I had budgeted for the rehab. And but I knew after all repairs were done, then the house was gonna appreciate for at least 85,000. Um,
Mhm.
it's like a brick house, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, again, a small house.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I have enough to pay myself back, to pay back my HELOC. And I was just like, okay, let's go in, let's figure it out, let's do it. So bought it, repair it, almost ready for rental.
Mhm.
They something happens. There's a fire in the house.
Oh.
My first bird. Yes. Yes. So turns out it was an electrical fire. The light on top of the kitchen. It wasn't really big, but the fire department did
Yeah.
come on. It was in the kitchen. The light over the kitchen. I guess the wiring was faulty over the light. So that set up on fire, which burned a little bit of the ceiling. It wasn't really bad, but the fire department did come because of the alarm, and then they came with the big, water hoses and everything, and it was the water damage that did a number on the house, newly rehab house, right?
Uh,
So I was like 35 in, 33 rehab, so altogether I was 68 in trying to cash out rehab, but the fire happened. So I was just like, let me not worry about the electrical. Nobody was in the house, thankfully. This was not rented yet. So that was the, I guess, the only good thing, that it was empty. The house was empty. The fire was not significant. The water damage, on the other hand, that was significant. But okay, the house is not longer a fire. So I was like, okay, what is it going to cost me to rehab it again? So I didn't want to take any chances with the electrical, so I just rewired the whole house, and I spent about 11,000 on top of my first rehab to get it again rental ready. So at this point,
mhm.
I'm like, okay, well, I'm not gonna get all my money back, but let's say I leave $11,000 in the house. It's still it's still okay for me because it's like I got a whole house for $11,000. Like not even a car, it's $11,000. So I was like, okay, like I just prepare myself mentally, the mindset of like, okay, you're just gonna have to leave money on the deal. That's fine. You're gonna have to do that and then move on. Anyways, the house got rehabbed for a second time, and um I went to the bank. I was like, give me a mortgage in this house, and the house actually appreciated for 150K. My estimation was 85,000, so
Oh.
it appreciated significantly more from what I thought. So immediately I'm like, okay, you need to work on your skill to estimate how much this is going to be. But anyways, it's a good turnaround, that even though I thought I went with the mindset of like I'm gonna left money in this deal, I did not end up leaving money in the deal. I took off all of the money that I put into the house, but I just it was so hard having the house for 6 months, having to rehab it twice, waiting for, a mortgage company to lend me in a cash out refi, having a high interest rate because it's 2024, still high interest rates. And just all of that mindset, it was hard. I would say that birds are hard. They're not easy. But surprised. I was pleasantly surprised after appraisal came in.
That's one of my goals is to do a burr, but I don't have the time right now. So I think maybe in another year or so I'll be ready for it once I get a little bit established because I'm moving and all that stuff. So I'll probably try to do one then. I'll have more time because right now I can't even imagine having to like move and do all this stuff and try to do a burr, and like you said, it takes a lot and learning the calculations and stuff because I do the calculations for regular long-term rentals, but then to have and estimate like how much is the drywall going to cost, how much is to do electrical, to renew the plumbing and all that stuff, that's all like extra calculations and work because you got to talk to contractors and stuff like that. It's like need more I need a little bit more time to be able to do that. Things are going to happen, but like you said, the risk is pretty low for you because you already had like two other properties that were like that's the way I see it. Like, okay, I already have these two other properties that can make up for this property if I take a little bit risk, and that's the important thing is to know your risk tolerance. And you were able to go do this burr, and luckily it worked out at the end. But if it had failed, I mean, you could have just sold it and then learned a few lessons and probably maybe lost a few bucks, but like you gain experience and that knowledge for the next time. So I think one of the things is to not really, see them as failures, is like learning experiences because now you know more for the next one if you do decide that. So is that something you're going to do now again, or are you just going to go back to regular long term?
I'm gonna do it again because I'm a sadistic person. I learned a lot during
Hmm.
those 6 months that I had the birth, and I also learned that I could do the same over and over again with the same money that I use for that particular property. So that is the beauty of like leveraging debt, and
Hmm.
I no longer have to budget. Like from house number one and house number two, I had to like save actively all the time, right? Like, those $20,000, even though it's a very low cost of entry, it's still $20,000. Like you're still having to save it every time that you're getting your paycheck. I'm like, okay, this is gonna go to real estate. This is gonna go to real estate. Are you gonna get your nails done, or are you gonna put it down to real estate? Right? Are you gonna get that haircut? Or you're okay. So there's always like that dance. So now because I'm learning how to leverage debt, then there is the possibility of growing and scaling so much faster. And then with the bank's money.
I'm glad you brought that up because it's true. I think it's hard to overcome that initial. It's like, oh, I got to save up for this, the 20,000 or whatever. But once you get the first two, like it starts like snowballing, like you said. Now like I had to save up with my own money, but now I don't have to save up my own money. It's just I'm just reinvesting the cash flow from my houses, and it's like it gets easier and faster to save up from the cash flow, um to save up for another down payment. And on top of that, like you said, leveraging debt. So then you start growing because now the first rental property, it's ready to, I think I'm still going to wait another year, but I think it's ready already to like, do a cash out refinance on it, or maybe take out, you know, figure out how to do something with that. And then probably the year after that, probably the second. But in the meantime, I'm still buying another property because of the cash flow.
Mhm.
Let's say this year, right? And I just bought in December. Now I have enough cash flow to save up for another one this year. and then next year I could probably buy two because I would have saved up from the four now, and then be able to leverage some debt from the first two properties. So then it starts, snowballing, and it starts like, really compounding and growing. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And I think the last question I want to kind of like ask, or, for your thoughts, because a lot of people in our community, we grow up, avoiding debt and, all that. So what are your like kind of words of advice or tips to help them overcome this idea of like, oh man, I don't want to like take debt on my house or anything like that?
Yeah, there's a very complicated relationship with that in our mind. And I really had to overcome that too. Like, I don't like having a home loan, having two mortgages, having three mortgages, having a home equity line of credit on your primary. It feels overwhelming. And if you're the kind of person that like, well, if it's not mine, then I don't own it. Like the banks own it. But at the same time, this is not something that's going to be depreciating over time. I mean,
Mm,
yes, we write off the paper loss, but if I look at it like, let me buy another car, and then let's say you buy a $50,000 car, $30,000 car, whatever, you drive it off the lot, then it's worth what, $20,000 less. That's a liability. I see that as a liability. And then what you're investing on is an asset. So when you invest on an asset that is going to be appreciating over time, because houses appreciate, like the general idea of the whole market is that in the United States, houses appreciate 4 to 5% every year,
mhm,
right? Regardless of you doing anything, upgrading or anything like that. You have that, and then you have a tenant that's paying down your debt. Like, you're not paying it down, right? A
mhm,
tenant that's paying down your debt. Then you have debt pay down. Then you have appreciation, normal appreciation, then debt pay down. And then
mhm,
if you, let's say, do some cosmetic work to the house or some kind of upgrades to the house, then you have forced appreciation. So you're winning like three ways in that particular asset. So just
mhm,
identify, what are you investing on? Are you investing on a liability? Are you investing on an asset? Is what you're putting money away or saving money away is going to bring you income? Then you need to understand that that's good debt. That's not bad debt. So leveraging and learning this, all of this, it takes time. And then I'm glad that you put this platform for people like us that don't have the education, don't have the people to ask them around. And if, I'm sure if they ask you a question, you'll be like, here you go, like read this book or listen to this person or look up this video or whatever. So that's how they educate themselves. And the education, then there is action. The action is going to come from that mindset shift that's going to come from like investing in liabilities or investing in assets. And I want to also let everybody know, like, if you do want to contact me or ask me any questions, I started a YouTube channel, and I'm trying to get other people involved in real estate, primarily women, primarily Latino women, because it is time to take ownership of our finances and our life. And with this administration, everything is just really up to you. So take ownership of your life. And one way you can do that is take ownership of your finances.
yeah. And what is your YouTube?
Yeah, it's a Lynn Does Investing. It's LIN Does Investing on Instagram and YouTube.
I'll make sure to post that on there. Make sure, go out there and support her. Yeah, other than that, again, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your story. Like, it was pretty interesting, especially, I mean, like it sucked at the time, I'm sure, with the burr, but, it's a good story and you learned a lot from it. I learned from it, because I never thought, like, oh, you know what? You probably should check the electrical wiring for all of it. So, because we would have thought from a light bulb, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, because usually you think about like outlets, but not from the light fixtures. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
you know, always learning. But again, make sure you follow her. Her information will be down below, and I will see everyone in the next episode. Bye.
Bye, everybody.